Pastor Edem Adom from King's Yard Ministry. I am unpacking the series on how not to forget the Father's house. Let's do a recap. We said God builds by family, and the only reason He builds by family is so He can distribute, dispense, what we call okodomia. And that family, that house of God, we call oikos. So He builds a family, and the family, we said, is not heaven. The house of God is not heaven. The house of God is the church. For Jesus said, in my Father's house, my Father's house shall be a house of prayer, which is there's a culture in the house that we must maintain. And then we moved on to say, look at the example of Joseph. He was sold to Egypt by his brothers, and then he had a wife in Egypt. He had sons in Egypt. So we read Genesis chapter 41, verse 50 and 52, that he gave birth to the firstborn called Manasseh. And the meaning of Manasseh is that the Lord has caused me to forget all my toil and all my father's house. So in effect, Joseph was looking at the freedom from trouble from his brothers and then forgetting all his father's house. He named the firstborn this. There's an error in this because in spite of all his successes, he will still need what we call grace. So moving on from here, you realize that Joseph, he managed the resources of Egypt well. And when there was famine, his brothers came to Egypt to buy food. So crisis can bring the church together. In crisis, we must begin to reconnect. Because I said two things. Grace is released from the father of the family and also from your brothers and sisters. This is what constitutes the father's house. The house there is family, tribe. And if you are placed well in the house, you have what we call immunity. The reason there are some relationships you can't disconnect from is that if God Himself placed you in the house, it's like a covenant. It's like a marriage. Why would you want to disconnect from something God has placed you into? Think about it. You can decide to do away with relationships, some relationship, but when what God is building, you can't disconnect from it because He Himself placed you into it. Think about it. You want to disconnect from what He has placed you into. That would be an error. So this is what Joseph did. Even though he was prosperous, he started to reconnect with his brothers, all because of grace. Genesis chapter 43, verse 29. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom ye spake unto me?" And he said, "God be gracious unto thee, my son." So now Joseph called Benjamin his son. Remember, they had come and he said they should go back and bring Benjamin. And then after he said, "Go back and bring my father," what was Joseph doing? He was reconnecting to brothers and then connecting to the father to build a house. So even though he said, "You have made me forget my father's house," he recognized that in spite of all his successes, he will still need grace from the father and still need grace from his brothers. And look at the location of the church. So the church is not in any particular location. The church is where you build the family. So in Egypt, which is a picture of the world, Joseph was building his family, reconnecting to the father to receive grace and reconnecting to his brothers. And he called Benjamin my son because any child of God, every child of God, the church, is called the firstborn child of God. The Bible said Jesus is the firstborn among many brethren. So We are not second, third, fourth born. We are firstborn just like him. He opened the womb and he becomes the template of his firstborn, seated at the right hand of the Father. So we mirror that image. Every firstborn who stands right to build the culture right, that firstborn qualifies to operate in the Father's grace. That's why he called Benjamin my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brothers. When you miss church, do you miss your brother? Do you miss your father? His heart yearned for his brothers, and he sought where to weep. And he entered his chamber and wept there. In spite of all they did to him, he still yearned for them. This is family. This is the heart you must have. That you want to reconnect to brothers in spite of their failures, in spite of their challenges, in spite of whatever wrong they have wronged you. In whatever way, you must still yearn for brothers. And why? If you do so, you have relegated your personal agenda of vengeance and you are focused on a bigger agenda, which is God building his family. So don't be self-ambitious and think that it is about me. They've wronged me. I want to pay them back. Think about the bigger picture, which is God building his house. In building his house, grace is released through the Father and grace is released through the brothers. This is Pastor Edemado, and God bless you.